good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting guests, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we decided to talk about. And tonight we've got a couple of guests here that are going to blow your socks off. My old friend here, Ted Pyle, radical leftist, all sorts of other names I can assign to him, but he'll call himself what he wants to call himself. And his friend George Slanina, did I pronounce it right?
Correct.
And you've not been on the show before, have you?
Yes.
You were?
Mm-hmm.
I'm embarrassed. Oh, let's shut the cameras off. Welcome back again. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah.
And so we talk about how the show usually goes. First part is the bio part where I talk about who you are personally, and to the extent that you want to divulge your secrets about your life and that kind of stuff, you can do it. Otherwise, you just say, move on, Dr. Don, we'll talk about something else. But since I remember this guy's life because we've been personal friends for a long time, so I'm going to probe him a little more than I will you, of course, and minimal stuff from you, because it's usually interesting. And they haven't seen you for a while, Ted. And I may learn something new tonight, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, shall we start? And your name is?
Ted Pyle.
You got a middle name?
Johnny.
Johnny. Was that John or Johnny?
Johnny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Johnnny.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get a funny name like that?
That's what they gave me.
All right, if I were to ask you, your best friend, who is Ted? What would your best friend say? He or she would say, Ted is?
The product of his environment in the extreme.
Product of the environment in the extreme.
His environment.
His environment in the extreme. That's it. We ought to end the show right there. Yeah. And when and where were you born?
Erlangen, Germany.
In Germany.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look like no German to me.
That's probably because I'm a mixed race. Mm-hmm.
One of them, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like those kind. Takes one to know one, you know that?
Right. Yeah.
Good to see you back out and walking the street again. We'll get into that later on, what I meant by that remark. And do you have a religious preference nowadays?
No.
Did you ever have one?
Well, I was brought up Catholic, then Baptist.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't make up your mind, huh?
I just went neutral.
Neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you are today?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. How about your formal education?
I went to Clark College for a couple of years, and then the war in Vietnam, I jumped out.
And did you go to Vietnam?
Nope, I went to jail instead.
What'd you do in jail? How'd you get to go to jail?
Well, I was a member of SDS, and they wanted me to burn my draft card, but that was a felony. So I decided to commit a misdemeanor in order to avoid the draft. So I painted "Support the Viet Cong" on the draft office in downtown Vancouver in 1967.
You see, you didn't tell me that before. The SDS, for you people who don't know, the Students for a Democratic Society, right?
Right.
That's a radical leftist organization.
Reed College.
So you've been a leftist for a long time.
Yeah.
How about during your teen years, your early teen, were you a radical leftist then?
No, but I was following civil rights back then
Uh-huh.
fairly closely since I had a vested interest.
A vested interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't ask why. So do you work nowadays or not?
Well, I'm retired technically,
Technically.
but I still work. I can't stop.
What do you do in your work?
All kinds of things, remodeling, auto repair still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a workaholic.
You're a man for all seasons,
Mm-hmm.
huh? Yeah. And you got a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, a wife,
I have
or what?
a girlfriend for 22 years.
22 years she's put up with you.
22 uncommitted years.
Committed you. Doesn't she say you should be committed?
No, she just won't commit because she's not sure. So, yeah.
You want to say her name or not?
No, Sue. Yeah. My Susie.
You want to say something to Susie? Right
Hello,
there.
Susie. You are number one.
Numero uno. Any children?
Yeah, I had two children.
Where were they?
Well, my daughter's, I'm not sure where she's at the moment, but my son committed suicide about a year and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing with it?
Well, it's been a rough couple of years, but yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
betcha. I'll betcha. Yeah, I just lost a sister about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It's not the same as a son or a daughter, so
Mhm.
sorry about that. And your political persuasion, are you a member of the Tea Party?
No, I'm a socialist.
What kind of a socialist? A Stalinist socialist?
No, a democratic socialist, sort of European-style socialist.
Uh-huh. Do you have any memberships in political, social, civic organizations that come to mind?
I've joined many organizations trying to understand them and why they're not getting much traction in America.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Have you come to any conclusions?
Yes. They are stuck in the past and past arguments, academic arguments that are no longer relevant. And so none of them are growing, even though there seems to be a grand opportunity for their type of message.
Uh-huh. And what are you doing to have them change?
Well, I joined the organizations and tried to understand what they were doing, and I'm not getting anywhere in those organizations because they still want to argue whether Trotsky was better than Stalin and whether Mao was better than Trotsky and what Lenin said, and all that stuff's kind of irrelevant anymore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So more specifically later on as to what precisely you're doing in your, in addition to the work you described,
Well,
you're pretty active and you got some equipment you brought with you and you talk about some of your projects and you drive me nuts. You got so darn many things going. So shall we go over to George? Can you say your full name? George
Slanina.
Slanina. What kind of a name is that?
It's Moravian.
Moravian. Where's Moravia?
It's part of the Czech Republic.
Ah, okay. I had a vague idea. I didn't want to embarrass myself and pretend I knew and sound stupid. And were you born in this country?
No, I was born in Germany.
Ah, you brought one with you. And how long you been in this country?
For a long time. My dad was in the Army and my mom was a German war bride.
Interesting.
And but we talked about this on the last show.
Pretend we didn't have the last show. Because I have some new viewers who probably haven't seen you before. Yeah. And how old are you?
I just turned 62.
62.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. A religious preference? Do you have one now?
Free thinker.
Free thinker. Oh, is that a religion? It should be, huh?
Well, I don't know if the free thinker should build a big cathedral that everybody goes to. But no, it's not organized. It's just a state of mind.
Yeah, can I call myself a free thinker?
I don't know. Can you?
I hope so. I hope so. And your formal education?
I have a degree in environmental science from PSU that I got in my later in life. I went to school in my 40s and graduated in 2000.
Good for you. What prompted you to do that?
Well, actually, I used to work at the forerunner of TV, and my wife said, "Do you want to be a 50-year-old access tech, or do you? I'll help you get through college." So
Now it's coming back. Some of this stuff you talked about, and she helped you get through.
yeah, and I worked. That was back in the days when you can get jobs, and I worked part-time and stuff. And so I got through college without being in debt because I could pay for my tuition and books with my part-time job, and she took care of my rent and food.
I remember now, yeah. those days when you could go to school and not be in debt until you die and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead here, a little more of the bio stuff. What do you do to earn a living nowadays?
I'm going to get my first Social Security check in December.
I took mine at 62 too. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. You already signed up for it and gone through the paperwork?
Mm-hmm.
A little aside story of this, a personal story. When I went in to sign up for my Social Security, as I signed the last paperwork there, I burst into tears. But I'm a big softy anyhow. And the worker there had handled people like me for so many years. She said, what's happened to you is not unusual because it's symbolic that you are signing that you're now an old person and you're not even aware of how it's affecting your insides. She was like a shrink, you know? And I'm sitting there and I'm so embarrassed because I'm crying because I just signed my Social Security papers. Did that happen to you?
No.
Oh, that's...
But I have made that shift to where, well, I'm kind of old now. And
Yeah.
I had a teacher that I studied film under back in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a picture of him recently, and when I was a student of his, he seemed old. But now that I've looked at his picture, he seems young. Because he died at an early age, so
Yeah.
so he never did get to get old.
I apologize for not having remembered you because your story is rather unique. Yeah.
Oh, like you say, we're all interesting people.
If you're interested. And husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Yeah, I'm married with a wife,
Yeah. And what's her name?
Susan.
Susan. Can you tell her something?
Hi, Susan.
Yeah. Your political persuasion. Question: are you as far left as this guy is?
It's hard to tell. I'm all over the map.
Yeah. Multi-talented or ambidextrous or something.
Yeah. Politics. Let's see. I'm still registered as a Democrat. I was a Green, but I switched to Democrat in 2008 so I could vote against Hillary Clinton because I thought Obama would make a better person, better president. But then this time around, I voted for the Green Party again because I thought Obama was continuing Bush's policies, in foreign policy and whistleblowers and a bunch of issues that I have with him.
Yeah, I voted the Justice Party.
Rocky?
Rocky, yeah.
Yeah.
So your political persuasion, we already asked you that, didn't we? And you're all over the place. And memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, any come to mind now? I'm an ACLU member for 30,000 years, for example. Yeah. Southern Poverty Law Center. How about you?
No, I'm not much of a joiner, but we did start the Sunnyside Employment Self-Help Group.
We've got that on a slide there, Sunnyside Employment Self-Help Group.
And it was for unemployed people that we met together and had a potluck and talked about getting jobs and stuff. But we kind of let that slide for a while because he was in jail. Ted was in jail, and then my father was ill, and I had to take care of him in his last days. So now that he's out of jail, we decided to restart the engine and see if it goes anywhere.
Good for you. When did your father pass?
January.
So very recent, huh?
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing with it? Okay.
Better now. It tore. When you're taking care of somebody, I think it's a little more severe than if it's happens like in a nursing home or kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you're close with the person all that time.
Yeah.
And I was his caregiver for 5 days a week and 24/7. And then I got weekends off. His girlfriend came and took care of him. And then we hired a nursing student to help during the weekend, you know. But we managed to keep him out of a nursing home and stuff. So I had worked in a nursing home, so I kind of knew what it was like. And it's kind of a mass production thing. And the certified nursing assistants that are helping him they're taking care of like 17 or 18 people on the night shift. The ratio is lower on the day shift, but there's it's just I don't know. I wouldn't want to go through that.
Is it different in other countries and other cultures?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
But a lot of cultures is around the family. The family is there, you know, for them, and the oldsters live with the family, and our culture has kind of got away from that.
Yeah. So I'm sad to hear that, and it's an unfolding process, the grieving process. I'm the 12th child. I'm the last one left. Mama and Papa died when I was a boy, and about every 2 or 3 years I bury another brother or sister. So I have an idea where you're coming from, but I'm not you, and it isn't my dad because he died when I was 5.
Mm.
So, as you know, it's a process that has to go through, and if I have present good thoughts about you and your recovery.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but stay away from this guy. Now, we've been talking all around about your being in jail. You're a jailbird. Mm-hmm. Shall we interrupt ourselves right now and see if he's going to tell us how come you're a jailbird? Again?
Yeah, well, this time was a culmination of a lot of things. And it was my daughter called the police on me, and I was there picking up some supplies. There was quite a few family problems, but we were trying to get out of there, and it just happens that the police was right behind us. So then they charged me with felony eluding for 3 blocks distance.
They were following you in their vehicle?
Yeah, and it surprised me when they said anything about felony eluding in 3 blocks. 3 blocks distance with no intersections and no stop signs, just 3 blocks distance.
But you weren't spinning the tires trying to get away or anything like that?
Well, during the trial they made a lot of hype about the 3 blocks, you know, but it was still an issue of 3 blocks. And I told them, well, 3 blocks, it takes that long to figure out that they're behind you, that they don't just want around you and just want you to get out of the way. And the behavior that they described of going in the left lane, going in the right lane, was behavior of trying to pull over. And but they managed to convince the jury to know that it was eluding behavior in 3 blocks.
Did you see them in your rearview mirror?
Well, yeah, you can see the lights, yeah.
And you decided not to pull over?
No, actually, I had a friend that lived 3 blocks from where he turned his lights on, and I was headed to that guy's house. So when I pulled in the driveway, it was kind of surprising that they still followed me in there. And then they charged me with eluding and eluding and obstructing. And so then they wanted me to plead guilty to eluding, and I said, well, 3 blocks distance with no running stop signs, no speeding, no, nothing really that was even a citable thing, I wouldn't plead guilty to it. So they offered me a deal. They said, if you'll plead guilty to the felony eluding, we'll drop the obstruction and harassment charge. And
felony.
Yeah, but I said, yeah, that's a felony, and I'm not going to plead guilty to a felony eluding charge over 3 blocks distance. It's not enough time, enough distance to make a felony charge out of. So their deal was they would recommend 60 days in jail for the felony eluding, which later on I found out 60 days was the most that they could give me with no prior felony convictions. by the sentencing guidelines. But they had no guidelines for misdemeanors. So the judge is free to do anything what they want with misdemeanors. So I demanded a jury trial. The jury convicted me of the eluding and the obstruction, and they gave me 364 days for obstruction and 60 days for eluding. And it's all on appeal still. I'm still in the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals has already overturned the first half of the conviction, because not only did they sentence me to 364 days for obstruction, but they sentenced me to anger management and 2 years probation on top of it. And the Court of Appeals, in my appeal process, the prosecutor agreed that they had sentenced me beyond the legal range.
Sure.
And the whole conviction is still on appeal. It's taken a year and a half, because I appealed the eluding charge on the basis that 3 blocks distance, no speeding, no running red lights, was an insufficient amount of driving to constitute reckless driving or a felony eluding. And the statute also calls for a thing called a lesser included offense, which states that the jury should have been instructed that the conduct that they were describing could have been a lesser misdemeanor offense of failing to obey.
Yes, yes.
Okay? But they didn't include that in the instructions, so the jury was left with the opinion they either had to convict me of felony eluding or nothing at all. So the Court of Appeals is reviewing that, and if I get what I want, they will say that that if the jury would have been given the opportunity to find that it wasn't a quick enough response as opposed to eluding, the felony will be dismissed. But so that's all in the Court of Appeals still.
Any idea when it's going to be resolved?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Now, the state wanted 60 days for the felony eluding, but they gave me a maximum on the misdemeanor. So the same state that was willing to throw the misdemeanor case out sentenced me to the maximum on the misdemeanor, which was 6 times greater than the felony.
Who did you make mad in that system somewhere? They're determined to get you. Why did they want to get you?
There's a history of overturning cases in Clark County.
Clark County, Washington.
Washington, yeah. And so essentially what they did, they said, you demanded a jury trial, so we're going to give you a year in jail. Where before we'd have been satisfied with 60 days if you would have just rolled over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they hard on you because you're mixed blood and you look kind of black, or you're?
No. I've had 20 years of fighting with the city of Vancouver code enforcement. I've had cases on let's see, I had 3 or 4 cases overturned in the Court of Appeals with the prosecutor's office. So there was kind of a vendetta of getting me. But it's still ongoing because the Court of Appeals may undo this entire thing.
So you're fighting that battle with.
I'm fighting that battle in the Court of Appeals.
And you got a long-term, ongoing battle with the authorities where you live. And how long is that going to go on? Are you going to move or what?
No, actually, I'm going to start a demonstration against the criminal justice system, because while I was in there for that year, I was flabbergasted at how felonies have been trivialized. It's a felony to kick in your own door at your own house. It's a felony to steal a second Snicker bar at Walmart. It's a felony if you shoplift a pack of cigarettes and the security guard trips and falls chasing after you in the parking lot.
That's a felony.
It's a felony. It's a felony. Kidnapping can be thrown at you for making somebody move 6 inches one way or another. Unlawful imprisonment charges for someone telling their girlfriend that she couldn't leave the room in an argument.
That sounds all screwed up, huh?
Well, they have trivialized felonies to the point where if you knew about it as much about it as I do, you'd realize that most people have committed many felonies in their lifetime in these petty areas.
Yeah.
And that the public did not intend kidnapping or burglary to be a guy walking through the Walmart door to steal the second Snicker candy bar. Or there are so many examples of felonies that are just completely misrepresentations of what I think the public intended kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment and domestic violence and restraining orders. They have all been so trivialized that there's no way of avoiding a conviction.
Can you still vote?
That will be overturned too with the appeal, and then I believe the way the rules work, you can still vote again. You can reapply after you're done.
Yeah, but right now, until this is
No,
settled, you can't.
this year I couldn't vote. Yeah.
Okay, and you went through all these legal difficulties not being a citizen on paper. You didn't have a full citizenship, did you?
I just cleared that hurdle before this thing came up.
All your life you weren't a legal citizen of the US of A?
No, that wasn't it. It was undetermined, and I just gotten my passport and my citizenship right before this incident happened.
How come you weren't a citizen on paper?
Well, it wasn't that I was brought here at 6 years old by my parents without doing any paperwork.
So all these years you slipped through, and now the authorities in Vancouver are going to look at all of this and say, we're going to get this alien one way or another.
The State Department had already made the determination that my father was a military soldier just like his, and I was born outside of the United States. It's just they didn't do the paperwork that they were supposed to do.
How'd you two happen to become friends?
Actually, she knew my wife. He knew my wife. And it was through her that I met Ted.
Yeah, are you sorry about that? I know. Well, listen, we better keep moving along here so we can get to the topics that we want to talk about, because it's important stuff we want to talk about, I'm sure. Let us take a break there, Mr. Director, and then we'll come back and talk about stuff, okay? And the mic's going to be off in a minute. And okay, we're back again, and I'm batting my guns away over here. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you persons who are just tuning in or missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don that you're watching is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we've decided to talk about. And so far, I think we've established that my two guests tonight are indeed quite interesting. And we can go on for another hour or two talking about who they are personally and not talk about the issues that we want to talk about. So we're going to get into that. But first, I want to take a brief diversion here about something that happened to me quite recently. It's rather personal, but it may be of interest to you. It's a question of celery and the uses of celery as compared to using pharmaceutical drugs to control blood pressure. There is a website I went to, someone directed me to it, that talks about the research done using celery to lower blood pressure, and I was quite impressed with it. And I was instructed to do 2 stalks of celery each day, and in a couple of weeks' time, my blood pressure would drop significantly. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I had an injury to my wrist, which is pretty well healed now, and in the emergency room, my blood pressure was 184 over 102, and I've never been that high before. So I think it was more than just the pain. But then, when I read this, I started doing the celery. So for 5 days now, I've been doing the celery in the morning with my regular ritual oat bran and my other supplements and like that. And lo and behold, this morning, the blood pressure was down to normal, just in a matter of 5 days.
Wow.
Can't imagine it. So do your own research on celery and its effect on blood pressure, and I'm very pleased with the result. There's all sorts of home remedies and stuff out there that are just goofy, but I'll report back to you in a week to see if it's still successful. So that's my story about celery. How's your blood pressure?
Well, actually, I'm going to have to try your regimen because it's up 150 something, 98 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll try it too because I got high blood pressure myself.
Diabetes Club.
Mm-hmm.
So share that with George. Will you? I think you'll find it really interesting. So much from my thing. Let's go to your things now. You want to talk about unemployment next?
Yeah.
Let's go.
One of the things that was in this recent election is a lot of people lost their unemployment benefits because they ran out because they went through the 99-week course.
Yeah.
And they were no longer counted in the U3 unemployment statistics.
So they just dropped out by the wayside.
Yeah, and so the campaign for the president were saying that, oh, look, unemployment is dropping, you know. But actually, it was just a statistical anomaly because they weren't counting all the people that dropped off the system who were still unemployed. And then in U3...
You can look at that later on that now.
In U3, they count, even if you have a part-time job, and even if you work 2 hours a week, they count that as being employed, even though you can't support yourself on that much.
So the figures on unemployment that they're making their political statements about are not true.
No, I don't think so.
So unemployment is really higher than they're saying.
Right. There's a website called shadowstats.com.
Shadowstats.com.
Yeah, shadowstatistics.com.
Shadow.
And what they do is they count the statistics based on what they were back in the 60s and 70s before they started changing the statistics to make them look better. So they're going by the old formulas. And by the old formulas, we have like 22, 23% unemployment.
So you're suggesting there's too much unemployment?
Yes.
How much unemployment is acceptable?
Traditionally,
in a socially responsible community.
Traditionally, it was what, 4, 6%, something like that.
7 or 8 was considered high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that is the natural, people changing jobs and things.
Sure.
But I mean, if you look at the newspaper, I mean, if you're an older person, you see how the want ads are really thin. I mean, there's not that many want ads. They used to be real thick. When we were younger,
Yeah.
there was pages and
some
pages of
choices,
want ads.
Yeah.
And well, some of that's due to the internet too, to Craigslist. A lot of people are using that because it's free, so they don't want to pay for an ad.
Sure.
But there just aren't many jobs, and good jobs are hard to find. And we're exporting them to China and India and Philippines every day. They're outsourcing jobs. And so what I'm saying is these problems are going to stay with us. They're not going away anytime soon.
Why are they going to stay with us?
Because even though they don't count them, the unemployed people are still going to be unemployed. So they're not going to be buying as much stuff.
So the unemployment rate is too high, everything considered. What do you think about that? Do you think there's too many unemployed in our country nowadays?
I think there's a global crisis in opportunity in all the countries.
That's saying a lot.
The Arab Spring is just the beginning of young educated people rebelling against a lack of opportunity after they've done their part and gotten their education. They just jumped ahead of us, but we're tailing behind. And it's a permanent problem because we've worked hard to create it. We've automated everything. We've globalized production, and we're not going to stop doing that. And nobody can come up with any kind of significant numbers that is going to solve the problem, with the free market being the only thing that dictates jobs.
Free market. What is that? Is there a real free market?
Well, at least the market system.
Oh, that's better. Don't
Market
call it a
system.
free market. It's a misnomer.
Yeah, okay. As long as the marketplace determines who gets a job when and where, it's going to be the cheapest country, and it's not going to be America. And the other thing that I want to point out is that well, two things. We've done a real disservice to our young people. We've taken all the wealth of the country and produced all of this, and we've driven up the price of houses, we've driven up everything, but yet we haven't guaranteed jobs or decent wages and jobs and benefits in our job situation like the Europeans have. So our children are faced with global competition. And to me, it's surprising that they were still pushing education out there as a cure-all for employment. Two things. That we're blaming the government for employment. In a free market economy, the government is not supposed to be the employer.
Again, you're still talking
market.
this fantasy land, free market
Well,
economy. And then you said something about the marketplace. And the marketplace, that's based on an economic system that we have now, where profit and power are the prime motivation of the people who actually run things. How about during FDR's reign in the 30s? The government took care of unemployment, didn't they, successfully? There's been other times in history where the government and not the free market or the free enterprise system were the determinants of who would be employed or not employed.
Well, we moved from the free market being the sole driver of employment to the government, which is a quote.
Stop saying free market.
Okay. With
This
was a socialist move,
Okay.
and it worked, so I believe that we need to realize that our children, whether we educate them or not, or they educate themselves or not, are not going to have the kind of employment that we had in the past, and that education alone is not enough. Education doesn't create jobs. With the free market, the more people that are educated, the less money they will make. The free market will respond by paying less, and it has been for the last 30 years. People are getting paid less for their education every year.
And why is that?
Because anything that's in surplus, the bosses say, why are we paying this guy $100,000 a year? We can get a guy in China or India to do it for 20 with the same degree.
You're not talking about those people who are making tons of money, and the people that work for them are making as little as they are, and there's not enough jobs available. Can't we take some of the wealth of these corporate heads and CEOs and arrange the economic system such that we could have more people employed and not necessarily just making work? What about infrastructure projects? I'm looking at, I'm showing my true colors here, anti-monopoly capitalist. We can do something more than we're doing, such that we don't have, considering all those things you mentioned, like automation and all that kind of stuff, we can still have people being able to support themselves. We can change the economic system such that. We need a Bolivarian revolution in North America, a Bolivarian revolution in North America. Hugo Chavez is my hero of the future.
Well, the first thing I think we need to do is realize that any problem in an economy is man-made and can be adjusted. If there's unemployment, then lower the work week. If there's a wealth distribution problem, then raise taxes and change the direction, change the nature of ownership. All of it is man-made, and it's made by the rules. And the Europeans have figured out how to deal with some of these problems by creating employment that doesn't work in the marketplace, but is subsidized by subsidizing housing. I think that employment needs to be moved from the responsibility of the individual to the responsibility of the society. I go back to the idea. I remember even when I was in college, Johnson was talking about the Great Society, and they were talking about a guaranteed annual income for every family in America. Now that was 40 years ago. The Europeans were starting to do it, but we've gotten off that track, and we've got a kind of a weird way of looking at it. We think the government should help and take care of business, but the government shouldn't help and take care of the family. The family should be on its own, and that's exactly the opposite of where it should be. And the responsibility for work and the workplace should be a cooperative effort between business, government, and labor. And I think that's what's happening. The countries that are the government and labor work together are being more efficient than the free enterprise. It's totally free enterprise market because the free enterprise doesn't work as efficiently. It works for the interest only of the profit tier.
George, what do we need to do to have more people employed in our country?
Well, first thing we need to do is jail all these bankers who cratered the economy because they committed fraud, securities fraud, accounting fraud, and even when we're foreclosing houses on people, they committed fraud by putting fraudulent documents into the court. And the judges ignored that until it was exposed. It was called robo-signing. I think you've heard of that.
Oh, yes.
These people need to be jailed, and the results of their crimes should be nullified. And I think the Glass-Steagall Act, separating investment banking from regular banking, should be reinstated. And I think that would help. And I think that the government needs to be the employer of last resort and start some infrastructure projects, hire some people. Once the people get money, they'll be spending it on housing and cars and such, and kind of prime the pump to get the economy going. I'm not a doctrinaire person. I believe that working people should have more power in the society, but I kind of believe in a mixed economy. There should be some private sector. There should be a collective sector. And even a government sector.
Someone suggested that things are going to get worse in this country because of austerity, the kind of austerity that's in play now in many countries in Europe.
Well, what's happening in Europe is they want to pay the bankers. The bankers want to get paid, and they bought all these fraudulent things from America. And their books are out of balance because the securities they bought ain't worth anything, and they want to take it out of the pensions of the people in Europe because the banks want to get paid first, and that's why they're doing all this austerity, and they're poking a sleeping giant because the people in Europe aren't going to be taking that stuff.
Well, apparently there's rebellion going on now in Spain and Portugal, and there's all the dealings going on, the negotiations back and forth. The capitalist ruling elite is still managing and in charge of the whole thing. The question in my mind is, as Tavis Smiley was being interviewed by Piers Morgan last night on the Piers Morgan show, Tavis Smiley is brilliant. And Piers Morgan asked him about austerity, and Tavis Smiley interrupted him. Well, what do you mean austerity? About going over the cliff? And he was suggesting that austerity is coming home to America. What will be happening is the ruling elite will be doing to the American citizenry what the ruling elite in Greece and Portugal and other countries in Europe are going on right now. You see, they never get enough.
Well,
The ruling elite do.
they're spending all their money on wars that they put on the credit card, like when Bush started the war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, he said it was off the books. So, whatever that means.
So,
But those wars have to be paid for, and these guys, these bankers and stuff, have formed a little coalition. I don't know if you've heard that news story, but they've been on like CBS News and they're peddling this austerity stuff. And these are, like the head of GE and the head of Goldman Sachs. And these were people who got bailed out by the government and whose companies pay no taxes. And they're saying, oh, we've got to cut Medicare. We've got to cut the people. Yet they're total hypocrites.
this fancy word is to have the ordinary citizenry accept that they'll be getting less money to feed themselves and put a roof over their head. It's because of austerity and the need for austerity, instead of looking at the other end and where the money comes from to take care of the society and the culture. And it's conditioning. And bottom line, I guess I'm getting at is there's going to be more unemployment. That's the result of, quotes, austerity.
Well, the problem with unemployment is those unemployed people aren't going to be paying taxes. So
Yeah.
So the system is
Well,
it's a self-fulfilling thing.
Austerity is just an argument. We have a problem. Austerity is a question of who's going to bite the bullet. And those who made the big money in the stock market crash don't want to lose any of theirs. They know the crisis is coming, so they want to take it out on Social Security, which has no problems in the first place, and social programs, because they know in the long run, when the economy, for which the private sector is responsible for the health of, fails, that sooner or later we're going to come to them and ask for subsidy for the people who've been displaced by unemployment. So they're trying to head it off with, well, no, what you guys have to do is live with less in order for us to keep what we have.
And and you have to keep living with less and
Less
less
and
and
less.
less because
Who's
they
going to bite the
never
bullet?
get enough.
Yeah.
So what do we do to head off austerity that's starting in America today? What do we have to do?
Well, I think we could
A
solve
Bolivarian revolution of North America, democratic socialism, out with those bums.
Well, I
Are we
think we
good?
could solve the problem if we could just get the business community and small businessmen to pay their fair share of the taxes. I was a small businessman, and I can speak for myself. Small businessmen and large businessmen underpay taxes enough to solve all our problems. I worked on painting crews where there was 10 people, but it was only 2 on the books. And it's just the same problem with Greece is that how can they expect to have social services and half of the economy is under the table? You know, and corporations don't want to pay taxes. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but everybody wants a government to solve the problem.
You're talking about in our country. There are
Yeah.
some countries in Europe who feel fine about paying taxes because
Well-
it makes their life easier across the board, and the governments are assuming a certain degree of social responsibility.
Yeah, I've developed a concept of, it's really funny. They were so in favor of profit and so against taxation. Because if you look around, what do you get a better deal out of? The money that the government spends, no matter how wasteful it is, no matter how stupid it is, and how much corporations take advantage of it, the government still does a great deal for us. But what does business do for us? What does profit benefit us? We don't see it. It's advantages in the woodwork.
George, you're bending my table, George, okay.
My proposition is that if there's a balance between more profit and more tax, we're way better off with more taxes. We get more back from our government by far than they do from business.
Show the super rich that.
Well, that's one my statement is that wealth creates and maintains poverty.
All right, let's switch gears here from it here. I wanted to talk about rolling jubilee, and I'm surprised you hadn't heard about that.
I think I have. I think some Occupy groups are going to the credit markets and buying debt for pennies on the dollar, and instead of collecting it, they're just saying, okay,
Forgive it.
forgive it. Yeah.
Let me read what it says here in this thing. Rolling Jubilee, can we put that, rollingjubilee.org, yeah. A bailout of the people, by the people. Rolling Jubilee is a strike debt project that buys debt for pennies on the dollar, but instead of collecting it, abolishes it. Together we can liberate debtors at random through a campaign of mutual support, goodwill, and collective refusal. Debt resistance is just the beginning. Join us as we imagine and create a new world based on the common good, not Wall Street profits. November 15th was a launch party, and there's some of the people who...
Well, from what I understand...
Michael Moore's involved and Yoko Ono. So go ahead.
Good. What I understand about the way the debt works, I think it's called commercial paper.
Yeah.
And when let's say you owe money to the hospital, and the hospital gives it to a collection agency,
Yeah.
the collection agency actually buys that commercial paper from the hospital for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
And then they have their little thugs come and harass you and try to get you to repay the debt.
Yeah.
And I think that's how that works. So this group is going to be competing with the collection agencies.
And they're having some success on a small level. And this is something where ordinary citizenry can be involved and just bypass the middlemen or the people who make money, the vulture capitalists, on people's unfortunate situation.
Well, that's a good movement, but that's for people who have money who can buy this stuff. A lot of the unemployed, we can't afford to be part of this because we don't have any bucks. But there's a movement going on right now called We Are Oregon. Was that the website? And they are what they're doing is they're trying to stop the foreclosures and keeping people in their home. And have you heard about that?
Yes.
Yes. And to me, that seems that's a movement that poor people or people that don't have any money can be a part of. Is what they do is when the sheriff comes to kick the people out of the house, there's a phone tree or email tree, and volunteers all come and try to prevent the foreclosure from happening. Kind of a direct action thing. And they're also asking us to contact the county commissioners and the sheriffs to tell them not to enforce this foreclosure thing because they do have a choice, and we, the people, have a vote. And if we have to, we can put some new county commissioners in there if we need to.
There's grassroots rebellions occurring from different aspects of the whole system. The question in my mind is, are we heading for a revolt, a revolution in this country? And will it occur before you and I pass away? Do you think the revolution is coming in this country?
I've studied it over the years, revolutions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I won't use a barnyard epithet because this is a family show. But I think people start revolutions when they get their nose rubbed in the feces many times. And I don't know if Americans
have reached that point.
Yet. Yeah.
What do you say? We got about 30 seconds before we got to shut down.
I say, if you don't want a socialist revolution in America, pay your employees good, give them good health care, and give them good retirement benefits, and we'll embrace your capitalism.
Okay, we better start winding down because they're going to yell at me in the control room, and Paul Wade is waving his signs at me. Paul, hello, Paul. Why, a wonderful crew person. And so keep your pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative. We've got the PSAs right now, public service announcements. To get my show, local broadcast schedule, go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on present day activities. Next PSA, please. To watch my shows on the web, go to my website again and click on favorite links. There's a couple hundred shows that I've put together over the years. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, we need the ACLU more than ever nowadays with our civil liberties in danger, even with Obama being our president nowadays. Support the ACLU. To get my shows broadcast by other stations, ask your local public access station to go to www.pegmedia.org and follow instructions on how to get my show broadcast from that local broadcast station. And we got to tell you about ending corporate personhood. That is so critically important. If we can end corporate personhood, then our voices can be heard, because corporations couldn't spend the money they're doing to own the political process and own. I got to say thank you for watching, and remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And to Sean Savage, who just came into the studio. Thanks again for watching. Good night.